Well, thank you so much, Erin, for being my co-pilot here today for this webinar. If you are here to learn more about implementing a larger scale online course quality initiative on your campus, then you're in the right place. And I want to make sure that you to kind of level set expectations that this is not a workshop about OSCQR or how to use OSCQR or how to do course reviews. It kind of assumes that you are already using some sort of quality review rubric and that you know how to do course reviews, or you have people who know how to do course reviews. This really is about creating an implementation plan to assist you in a larger scale, either at the institutional level or at the departmental level, or perhaps at the program level, some larger scale activity around course quality and using a rubric, an online course quality rubric like OSCQR. We have developed OSCQR for this purpose and have made it openly licensed and freely available to anyone who wants to use it or adapt it. But really, you could use this plan with any quality scorecard or quality rubric. You just replace the word OSCQR here with whatever it is that you happen to use. Any rubric is better than no rubric, and so I'm partial to OSCQR because we developed it, and I think that it is really good and unique, and so all of the context of this webinar is going to be around the use of OSCQR, but just keep that in mind, that if you have adapted it or adapted something of your own or use a different rubric, you can easily use this process and this plan to design a larger scale online course quality initiative at your institution. Again, you could do it at the campus level, at the program level, at the departmental level, whatever it is that that is going to make sense contextually for you. So it's really a template. It's a Google Doc. And what you need to do first is go to File. When you get this link, and Erin is popping the link to this document in the chat, just do File and make a copy. And then it's yours. It'll belong to you, and it will be, I won't have access to it. It'll be yours. You'll be able to customize it and modify it and use it in whatever manner is going to make sense for the context that you are designing the plan for. So those might be, like I said, quality activities, course quality initiatives that might be, larger scale at the institutional level, program or department level. You might have initiatives that are focusing your plan. So you might be wanting to improve accessibility across all of your online courses, or you might be wanting to target instructor engagement or learner engagement across all of your courses, or you might be wanting to make sure that you are in compliance with the new Department of Education regulation regarding regular and substantive interaction. So you can use this plan to frame initiatives and to guide the initiative plan in whatever is going to make sense for what you're trying to do and what your model of course review and refresh might be. And there are lots of different models out there, from formal to informal, from instructor self-assessment, peer review, multidisciplinary review, to instructional designer focused, formal and informal. There's lots of different models out there. So whatever your context is and however it is that you're going to design a plan to improve online quality, you can use this, you can adapt this plan for all of those purposes. So once you have your copy, anything that you see that's in italic, would be something that you want to change to begin customizing it to you. So, so if you're not adopting OSCQR, then you would change that to whatever it is. You would put your institution here. This is, if you're doing it for the first time, it would be your first version, and you date it. And then this is really a plan. This is set up like a table of contents, and I can go to any one of these links and I can get there. You know, it's set up to support and facilitate leveraging the features of Google Docs to design a plan that you can customize, and then you can export it into a PDF or into a Word doc to distribute, or you can distribute the link to it with whatever viewer or editing access you want to it in order to distribute it amongst your team members who are helping you with the plan, or your stakeholders, or the final product with your provost or your president or whoever it is that you would like to share this with. So it's really flexible and easy to use depending on, you know, how you want to use it. So it's got everything built into it. And you'll see, I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this. This is merely a framework that will allow you to consider the elements of your plan and whether or not those elements are relevant to the context of what you're trying to achieve. So for example, if you're not dealing with new online course development, just rip this section out, delete those pages. And so that would mean that perhaps you're focusing on existing online courses. So everything in the kitchen sink is in here to help guide your thinking and guide your planning to you know, customize it to your context and to the thing that you're trying to achieve with this initiative or this activity. So I'm going to go through every one of these sections of this plan so that you can see and understand what's here and how it's meant to be, and to call your attention to things. So in any good plan, you need to have an introduction. And so you're going to give some overview and context to the activity. You want to make sure that you're explaining to whoever's looking at this, and that might be above you, or it might be to your stakeholders, why it is that you're embarking on this initiative and what some of the historical context might be. You also want to list the members of your committee or your task group or your team that are assisting you with this larger scale initiative. So you want to have a team, and I'll talk about assembling your team in a second. You don't want to go in your office and close the door and come up with this and then kind of, you know, try and push it out. You want to engage people, the varied stakeholders that are going to be touched by this larger scale initiative, and you want to make sure that you're transparent about that as well. This is boilerplate. It's not in italic because I'm hoping that you will keep this in there, acknowledging where you got the template. This is openly licensed and freely available to anyone to use and adapt and customize however you want. We just want some you know, citation, some recognition of where you got it. That's what the CC BY license is about. Let's go on and look at purpose. So in any good implementation plan, you're going to need to explain why the initiative is needed. So you've given some historical context and some additional some initial information. And so now you want to really succinctly articulate what the purpose is. And then you're going to want to think about communications and how you are going to present and engage and collect information from your community or your varied communities of stakeholders. How are you going to make sure that everyone is informed? How are you going to promote or publicize the activity if that is relevant? We have produced here some boilerplate information that is related to OSCQR about you know, kind of how this could be presented to others publicly. You know, this is in italic. All of the stuff that's in italic you need to customize to your particular context. And obviously, you know, if you're using other tools or adapted OSCQR rubric, you know, you can just frame that however you like. So again, boilerplate, if people are interested in more information about OSCQR, they can go to that link, and then you would put in your campus contact there. All right, so then another aspect of this front matter is to talk about the goals. What are the goals of the activity? And again, that's going to be defined by whatever the objectives are of this initiative. Is it sort of a general activity to improve course quality across the board, or are you going to focus on accessibility or RSI or improving interaction, or as a continuous improvement process, like on a cycle every 3 years, you go in and review and refresh all of the courses over the course of 3 years. So you customize this to whatever it is that the specific goals are of your activity. You want to really think separately about your new faculty and your experienced faculty. So what are the activities and goals and the focuses for either of those two groups, or if you have additional groups, maybe it's a program, or maybe it's a department, or a school if you're at a larger institution. So you really want to consider and think about, within any of those categories, are you focusing on new faculty, or are you new online faculty, or are you focusing on experienced online faculty? What's the model that you're going to use in terms of review and refresh for this initiative? And how are you going to either adopt or adapt OSCQR? What are the modifications to the rubric that you need to make? And are you going to have different rubrics for different programs or different disciplines or different departments? And detailing these goals to the activity go in this spot here. So clarifying why you're adopting OSCQR or whatever rubric you are going to be using for this activity. I'll show you in a second some resources that go along with this section. And OSCQR is more than just a rubric, it's a process, and it includes tools and rubrics and materials that all support an online course quality and continuous improvement environment, right? So you're going to want to talk about why you're adopting whatever it is you're adopting, and how that fits in with the overall plan to make improvements on a larger scale. I've included the link here to the OSCQR rubric, as well as a link to our informational video. So this is the main website. If you're not familiar with OSCQR, this is the main website related to all things OSCQR, and I'll go through some of this in a second, but just to give you, if you haven't seen this before, there is a very, fully thought through companion website that goes with any of the tools that are related to OSCQR. Here, I want to make sure that, here's the process. So I mentioned, right, that OSCQR is more than just the rubrics. It includes a commitment to online continuous improvement in terms of quality. So just because you develop it and teach it one time doesn't mean that you're done. This is a set of tools and resources that is supportive of a continuous improvement culture that is non-evaluative in nature. It's intended to be focused on continuous improvement and to open conversations about this ongoing cyclical nature of, designing a course, reviewing and refreshing a course, delivering a course, improving things that worked well, that didn't work as well as you had hoped, and then continuously doing this on either an individual faculty basis, on a departmental or programmatic basis, or on an institutional basis, and there might be different timeframes and different processes or approaches or strategies to things at each of those levels. At the faculty level, it might be a self-assessment. At the institutional level, it might be every 3 years, each course is, all of the courses are more formally reviewed and improved. So it depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve, but it's more than just a rubric and more than just reviewing courses. It's this culture of continuous improvement and focus on improvement that is, that kind of frames the whole process. This is the video. I'm not going to share the video because it's 5 minutes long, and I just want you to know that it's here, and it's just a 5-minute video, 5.5-minute video that really explains all, in a short amount of time to whoever might be interested, what OSCQR's all about and some of the things that are unique about it and how it works. And it's a really good tool that you can use to share with your stakeholders, whether above you or your stakeholders that you're working with, to explain and to sort of begin the conversation of introducing people to OSCQR. So I just want to make sure that it's here. It's also in the About page of OSCQR on the website. So if you go and look through, oh, sorry, that's the wrong page. The process, sorry. It's here somewhere. There it is. So the website has lots of information to share with people who are new to OSCQR, as well as it's a tool to use for those who are very familiar with it, instructional designers and faculty. All right, so I went through all of those. Let's go back to the implementation plan and to the next section, which is about organization and organizational awareness, approvals, and communication. So I mentioned earlier that you want to have a team of people that is working with you on this. So you need to identify who your key stakeholders and members of your committees or other committees that exist that might either be represented in your team or actually be part of your team. You want to make sure that they are going to be included and aware and contribute to the activity. It's really important that you think through all of these pieces, including agreements and policies and procedures and resources. In any good implementation plan, you need to think about all of those things. And so you want to know from that perspective, who are your key stakeholders that need to be included in various levels, right? The people who are actually working with you on the implementation plan might be key stakeholders, but you might have additional stakeholders that need to be kept informed. So that's all about getting buy-in and getting included on meeting agendas and getting approvals, making sure that you're articulating what the benefits to faculty are, and all of this you would document here in this space. You want to take an inventory of your policies and processes and resources. You want to make sure you think about key target dates. You want to make sure that you have approvals for various things and you're taking that into account in terms of the calendar of activities. And you want to make sure that you have a communications plan. So I'm going to share with you a couple of resources that are associated with this. In terms of identifying your stakeholders, here is a template worksheet that you can work on independently, or you can work on with a group of people to help you identify who your stakeholders are. You want to really think through what your model of review is going to be. And as I mentioned, there are a variety of types of models that are going to be it's going to be important to understand that and to make it fit with your context and your culture. Otherwise, you need to work within that in order to be successful. So, but you need to identify that and thoughtfully, think about and address that and plan for that. What's your timeline? Again, thinking about timeframes, any kinds of contingencies or dependencies in terms of time. And then you want to do your inventory of policies and structures and procedures that need to be taken into account. So I want to make sure that you have this as a worksheet that you can use and adapt. Here I'm sharing with you, and I do this session as a workshop, and I've done it from anything to like an hour and a half to a 3-hour workshop. And so when I do it as a workshop, we actually go through the process of brainstorming stakeholders. And in this document, I have put all of the responses that I have gotten from folks that I've run this with in a workshop format kind of a thing, just so that you can see and maybe compare against what you come up with to make sure that you haven't left anything out that others who have done this activity have identified. So it's just there as an example and for you to take a look at and leverage however you'd like as part of this process. I also talked in this section about communications, and once you identify who your courses or programs or departments are going to be the target of this larger scale online quality initiative, you're going to want to start communicating with them. So I have an example here of communications that we developed when we ran this initially. So it's just an example. You can, if it doesn't apply, just ignore it. But if it does sort of apply, you can go ahead and adapt this to your own needs and purposes. So this first one is focused on seeing if a person is available to have their course reviewed. That's how we approached it. It was highly recommended. We can't make anyone do anything, so we couch it in terms to make it not seem like we're forcing people to do things. They opted into this, in other words. And so we explained the process and just asked if they would be available. And we did have this initiative on a particular time frame, so this would have been replaced with the actual time frame that we were targeting. And then the following one is, once the instructors have been solicited for this initiative, then we identified peer reviewers as part of this process. So we asked people if they were willing to be peer reviewers in this process. And so this is how we solicited the peer reviewers for the process. And then after the peer reviewers agreed to participate, this was the communication that they got, explaining to them what the next steps are. So this is just there as an example of a series of communications that we used when we implemented this as activity as a larger scale thing, and there for you just as an example. And then I did mention in this section some training. I believe I did, right? Didn't I? Let me just go on with I'll get to that in a second. So assembling your stakeholders. What you want to do, this is the process of adopting and adapting OSCQR. And so you want to make sure that your staff are trained, right? And so who are your staff that are going to be involved in this, and do they need to be trained in terms of implementing the OSCQR rubric? Do they need trainer certification? And that's where that link to the OLC instructional designer certificate, professional development certificate comes in. Again, these are those very types of models that you need to consider and define for your plan. How are you going to do this? Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it groups like peer review or multidisciplinary? Is it individual? And so these examples are of how we put together our course reviewer network. And so I'll show that to you now. Here's the instructional designer certificate program. And if you look through these materials, you'll see that ID4 is focused on OSCQR. So you might might want to consider, do your instruction, in order to be successful in doing this, do your instructional designers need some sort of certification in instructional design? Is that going to help you achieve this objective? And is specific OSCQR training and certification going to help you be more successful in this initiative? And if so, then these are some options for you. All right, so then let's look at our course reviewer network that I mentioned. Here we put out a call to all of our faculty who teach online and asked if they would be willing to be course reviewers for other institutions or in their own institution. And so from that call, we received a number of volunteers, and from the form that they filled out, we got their contact information, what their primary discipline is, what courses they're willing to review, what their availability is, what their experiences are in any certification. So you can actually look through this, and this is a self-service. Anyone is welcome to come here and take a look and see if you need someone to do a course review, to reach out to these people individually and see if they would be willing to assist. And here's the form, just, and all of these links, we're going to share this with you so that you can look at it and use them as models. This is just built in Google Forms. So you're welcome to take a look at the way we do things and adapt them for your own use cases. All right, I'm going to go to the next section in the plan, and that is new online course development. And so remember, I said you need to think about new online course development separately from existing online courses. And if you're not going to focus on one or the other of them, just delete these pages, just delete all this content. But if it is a larger scale, more comprehensive, including both new and experienced faculty in their courses, then you want to think through, okay, from that perspective, what professional development workshops and certifications are necessary in order to do this. And that would be for staff, and that for any of your instructional design staff, but also for faculty. How are you going to train your faculty in implementing OSCQR and being aware of OSCQR? This is for new faculty and new course design. So how are you going to incorporate the OSCQR standards formatively into new online course design and development and your professional development activities? How are you going to do that? And is everybody trained? And do you need any kinds of certifications for either faculty or staff in order to do this work? You might want to develop, that's what I was just talking about here, like how are you going to incorporate that into your new course development and design? And then how are you going to use this process to review and improve new online courses? So is there going to be a review? Who conducts it? What authority do they have? What are the policies and procedures in place or that are needed in order to implement this? When does the review take place? And who is charged with making the changes that are identified as a part of the review? One of the things we recommend for new online course development is that faculty design and deliver their online courses in conjunction with a robust faculty development program and with the assistance of an online instructional designer with expertise in pedagogy and best practices. And then after the instructor designs and delivers that course that they've had all sorts of professional development and assistance with, they use the OSCQR rubric as a self-assessment. And they say, okay, I taught this course, I designed this course, what worked and what needs to be improved. And they come up with a self-assessment that they can then take independently and make improvements, or they can take it to an instructional designer and work with them to make selected improvements. And they can use the rubric to help prioritize what improvements they're going to make for the next time that they teach it, or get the help of an instructional designer to make those decisions based on how they filled out the self-assessment. So yeah, there's a bunch of examples here. This is the one I was just talking about, but there's lots of, there's varied ways, and these are just examples that you would want to articulate as part of this plan of what's going to happen for your new online courses as they go through this quality plan, this plan to continuously improve quality. So this, let me just, again, that was the instructional designer certificate program in case that's needed. The next section focuses on existing courses. So you want to make sure that you're setting up whatever the process is, so that you can actually implement it. And I have some examples of things to show you in a second, but what's your time frame? Are you doing it as the initiative initially as a pilot? Are you phasing it? Is it focused on a department or a degree program? Or is it a larger scale activity covering all of the courses in a phased approach that takes place over the course of 3 years? So you need to think about that schedule and that time frame and what what it's trying to achieve. Like all that sort of leads to the decisions and the determinations, depending on if it's a pilot or if it's like a phased approach on covering all of the courses. That time schedule, that timeline and schedule is going to vary. So you want to always, in every one of these, whether you're talking about new faculty or experienced faculty, you want to think about what are the professional development activities that are necessary to set you up for success with this. Do you need to train your instructional designers? And do you need to train your faculty? Do you need to have are going to do peer reviews, and so they'll need to be trained in peer review, or are you going to do multidisciplinary approach, and those folks who are part of that would need to be trained as well. And then what's the process that you're going to use for conducting the reviews? These are just sort of guidelines explaining, sort of steps in the process for review, refresh, and improvements of the course based on the review. So let me go through some of those things with you here. I have some examples of 3 different models from 3 different types of institutions. Oops, let me make this smaller so you can see it. Oh, why isn't it going smaller? Smaller. There we go. All right, I just want you to be able to see the whole thing. So Binghamton is one of our large doctoral institutions. And so here's a presentation that they gave about how they adapted the process. Then I also have a description of how Herkimer, one of our small rural community colleges, adapted the process. And then I have a description of how I believe it's Monroe Community College, a large commuter campus in an urban area, how they adapted the process. So just want you to have some information about how different types of institutions designed their their course quality initiative, and how that varied from types of institutions. Just wanted to have you have that kind of information. Again, the instructional designer, professional development planning. And then I also have here a guide, our guide, how we implemented, I'm just trying to see if I can make this smaller. Let's fit. All right. So this is a description of how we designed our implementation plan. And so it's just this is an example. You can, it's the actual PowerPoint. You can take a copy of it and modify it, use it as a template. And it's just explained. When we were doing it, we were explaining to campuses what the process was going to be like, because we at the system level work with campuses. You would be, if you represent an institution, you would be working at your campus level to whoever it is you're targeting with this initiative. But it's just an example to help you see how we communicated what this activity was going to entail and look like. And so you can go through this and use it just as an example or however you like. So, oh gosh, again, here we go. So this is the next section of the implementation plan template, and that is to focus on your process of continuous online course quality improvement. And you want to document how often you're going to repeat this process. Like I said, this is intended to be and reflect a culture of continuous improvement. And so you may be targeting accessibility or RSI or engagement or whatever, but continuous improvement means you're constantly attending to improving the design and the quality of the courses and the preparation of the faculty to teach with whatever the technologies and the design of their courses are. And that changes. Technology changes. What we know about what's effective in online teaching and learning changes. And so that needs to be on some sort of cycle to continuously look at what needs to be improved, what's working and what needs to be improved. You want to think about leveraging this process and how you can collect and share best practices that you learn from a larger scale initiative so that you can share that with larger stakeholders and community members, especially the faculty, the online practitioners. But it can, depending on what you're doing, it could even go beyond that. You want to make sure that you think about how does this fit into other institutional processes and activities. And then you want to think about, how are you, what are you measuring and how are you measuring it and how are you going to report it? So this section of the plan is about impact and reporting. You want to tell your story. You want to show that you've done this plan, you've implemented this plan incrementally through the implementation. You're collecting feedback and data, and then you want to report that out. And so what are going to be the measures that show your successes? So thinking about that in advance as part of this plan is really important. Working with your Office of Institutional Research, evaluation and assessment is going to be really important, so you can get their help in designing instruments to collect data that will give you information on how it's going and help you to tell your story well, so that everybody knows and understands the impact that you've had as a result of this activity. And then where are you going to whom and where are these reports going to get distributed or disseminated? You want to think that through and plan for that in advance and think about the timelines of things so that you know and have something prepped for your annual report, have something that you are earmarking for your strategic planning process or your budgetary allocation process, or even any accreditation or self-study activities that you might be undergoing. You want to also think about in the plan how you are going to apply this notion of continuous improvement to your planning activities and your implementation activities itself. So if this is a multi-year activity, you want to, review periodically and document when you're going to do that so that you don't continue down a path that isn't going to work or isn't working, that you reflect and see what's working and see, is there anything that we need to change in our implementation plan in order to make sure that we can be successful. So thinking that through in advance is is an important part of this plan. And then the element of celebrating success or capitalizing on successes is also an important aspect that you want to consider as sort of in the implementation plan scoping. So what I have listed here are examples of things that we have designed and delivered over time. We didn't have all of these things developed on the first day. I just want to make sure that you know and understand that we've been, working in online teaching and learning since 1994. We have had a lot of time to do lots of different activities and initiatives and develop lots of different things. So I just wanted to show you as examples some of the ways that you could adapt to your own context to celebrate successes, to document and showcase successes. And so I'm going to go through these quickly. We use badges. And so we have a number of badges that we have implemented, and those badges recognize the both the professional development accomplishments as well as the actual activities of conducting and performing reviews. We also have an effective practices award program, and so exemplary faculty who are willing to share things that they have developed or designed, either in conjunction with their instructional designers or independently, can get recognized. And initially, when we first rolled this out, it was really just at the course level. And now you can see we have effective practice awards in lots of different areas related to online teaching and learning. We also have this partnership with Topper. So you can come back here and review this, this stuff at your leisure. We have a way to nominate and recognize and showcase exemplary or exemplar courses that we put up as exemplars for other faculty and instructional designers to look at, so that they can see what online courses look like, and in particular specific things within those courses that might be of interest to share and adapt. We also have an online fellows program where anyone who touches online teaching and learning can self-select into a role and join the community in that role, and then get some targeted information like access to webinars like these by them joining one of these roles in our community of practice. We also have an online teaching ambassadors program to share and recognize faculty who are enthusiastic about online teaching and learning and willing to share that enthusiasm with others in their own institutional community, as well as with our broader system. And so you can go in, and we do this every, it's a different person every year, a different group of people every year that are nominated and identified as ambassadors. And so here for 2022, we have Maggie Keefe, and she gets a profile page on our website. She gets to have a testimonial here and some information about her. And we do this every year. And each of our campuses, we have 64 campuses, and each of them can nominate 2 people every year for this recognition. And there are community badges that we have available to incentivize behaviors and participation in the community. We have a mentoring program where people have volunteered essentially to say that they would be mentors to other faculty in their own institution or in other institutions. And here I clicked on Stephanie from one of our universities, and there's a page, a link to her web page, her contact information, what her strengths are, and she was an ambassador, an online teaching ambassador. And so you can go through, and we've organized it by discipline, so you can take a look at all of the people who have volunteered to be mentors to other faculty. And here we have events where we showcase our faculty and other online practitioners. And then we also have a number of ways that anyone who's interested in sharing their practices, their enthusiasm, their approaches, we have a number of ways that we collect and share and showcase our faculty, our instructional designers, our campuses, and other online practitioners across the system. So I think we're at the last part of the implementation plan. In any good one, you need to have a budget. And so this is just a boilerplate kind of example budget. You might want to pull this out and attach a full-on spreadsheet for this. But what I wanted to highlight in this are things that you might not have considered, right? Do you need somebody to be the OSCQR coordinator? How many instructional designers do you have? Who's in charge of the whole thing? Are you going to do any videography and any multimedia stuff? Who's going to close caption, and by what tools are you going to use, and how's that going to get funded if you do videos as part of this initiative? You need to make sure to budget for that. Who's your accessibility expert? Do you have a librarian to be part of this process who can assist with copyright permissions and to provide information about that to your faculty as part of this process? Do you need to customize OSCQR? And if you do, you may need to have a Google Forms development expert. This is a technical application development role. You might, if you really need to customize any of the tools that are associated with OSCQR, you're going to need some technical application development, specifically in Google Forms, to do that. All of the different elements that are included in a budget for a plan. Don't forget the professional development activities that you're going to need to allocate resources to. And then there's the obligatory signature page, and you can customize this however you like. You might want to have an organizational chart describing the organization in which the initiative lives. You might want to have some course reviewer expectations and an agreement, and I have an example of that to show you in a sec. And you might want to add some additional references. You might want to define key terms. You might want to have something else that you want to include in the plan. And so that's the end of it. That's the end of the plan. I mentioned the description of the course review process. So this is here just as an example. This is what we use. This was our description of our course review process that we used when we did this. And it's just here as an example so that you can see and look through and see if any of this prompts you to think about things, or maybe you can adapt it or adopt it in whatever way you like. All right, so that is the very fast overview of the implementation plan, which is now yours, that for you to use and adapt however you like. Erin has put the links to the plan in the chat, as well as the link to the folder that has all of the links that I shared with you are in that folder. So you have the link to the plan, and you also have the link to the folder of everything that I showed you. Now, what I'd like to do is very quickly go through, for those of you who may not be completely aware of OSCQR, go through with you some of the tools and resources that might apply to a larger scale initiative. So here's the main OSCQR website. I already showed you the About page. If you're familiar with OSCQR, you know that every standard, there are 6 categories, and every category has a number of standards. There are 50 standards total. They are integrated between instructional design and accessibility. And now also regular and substantive interaction has been integrated. And each standard has its own page. And you will get a little mini micro video that has people from our community talking about this particular standard. And there's a narrative overview of the description of the standard. There are citations and references that support this standard from scholarly work. So it's not just me saying you should have opportunities for learner-to-learner interaction. There's really scholarly work behind that that recommendation. And then we have a bunch of ideas that you can use to refresh your course. Once you've identified that this particular standard needs work, you can come here to get some ideas of how you might improve this particular standard. And then we have additional resources that we've incorporated into this, as well as additional scholarly works that are supportive of this particular standard, and they all have this. And then you also have the ability to make a comment or to contribute your own ideas that we will then at some point include in this area of ideas for improving or refreshing your course for this particular standard. So that every one of the standards in the rubric has a page like this. So I mentioned that the rubric integrates accessibility with instructional design standards. And so I just wanted to point out the page that has, most of the accessibility standards laid out, and they're kind of highlighted in yellow, but they're also infused into other standards, that might be more instructionally design focused, but there's elements that would pertain to accessibility. So they're infused in there. It also, as I mentioned, incorporates regular and substantive interaction, the new Department of Education regulation that campuses need to be aware of, instructional designers need to be aware of, and faculty need to be aware of. And there's accountability at each of those levels. And I do a whole presentation and workshop just on regular and substantive interaction, but you can come here and learn more about how you can leverage OSCQR to support compliance with regular and substantive interaction. And just so that you can see on those standards that relate to RSI, you'll see this little dashboard icon, and there's going to be a whole section on the web page that actually calls out regular and substantive interaction and how the standard supports regular and substantive interaction, and then recommendations on how to improve the course to be in compliance with regular and substantive interaction. I have two templates to share with you. One is a syllabus template, and I'm sharing this with you just in general because I think it's cool, and you can see that every element of the syllabus maps to an OSCQR standard, but then there are some unique things that I want to call your attention to. There's a basic needs statement, there's a names and pronouns statement, and this is related to DEI efforts and initiatives. And then there is also a regular and substantive interaction statement here, straight in the syllabus. So you can actually adopt and adapt this. This is a template. You can make a copy of it and then it's yours. Or you can just use it to compare against your current syllabus templates and to make sure that you are thinking about all of these elements and that they, maybe they can be used to improve your syllabus templates. I also have a template that I want to share with you on documenting regular and substantive interaction. And so this is in conjunction with any activity that you might be doing to make sure you're in compliance. And so you can take a look at this. Again, this is a template. You can make a copy of it and then it's yours. But this is straight from the regulation. Every element that's in here is straight from the regulation, and it can help you to define a process to, on a larger scale, document how your courses are in compliance with that new regulation. You can get OSCQR from the Get OSCQR link on the website. And if you haven't gotten the latest version of OSCQR, which includes regular and substantive interaction, anytime you're in doubt, just go get one. And you'll see if you're using the right one, it'll say OSCQR 4.0 at the top of it, whether you're getting the PDF version or the interactive version. The PDF version is available from the Online Learning Consortium. It's easy to download. All you do is put your name and email address in there, and it's free from the Online Learning Consortium. And you can see they have umbrellaed it, they've adopted it from us, and it is now a nationally recognized, freely available, openly licensed rubric. And this is what it looks like, the PDF version of it. And you can see each standard that associates with RSI has a little icon next to it. And there are elements of the PDF that are fillable. And so you can use this, as this is not for larger scale initiatives. This is really, if faculty are doing a self-assessment, this is the one that they probably should use. And you can see it says OSCQR 4.0 on it. So if you ever have a question about which version. So then if you want to get the new rubric that's interactive, or you want to get the new dashboard that is interactive specifically for these larger scale initiatives, you're going to want to go to that Get OSCQR page and download or generate the new interactive rubric or the new interactive dashboard. And the rubric looks like this. It looks really similar to the PDF, except there's tabs in case you have multiple reviewers. And there are elements that are interactive in that, you know, when an instructional designer, you can fill this out, and then the faculty person can fill this out. And then if you have another reviewer, they can fill it out. And at the bottom, you know, it allows for a bunch of feedbacks or overall narrative feedback. And then for every standard, you can add commentary there as the reviewer, so that we're in the instructional designer tab. So this is feedback from the instructional designer. And if the instructional designer needs some ideas, they can click directly on that link and get directly over to the website for that particular standard. So you can see here's the feedback that the instructional designer is providing. And then down here at the bottom, you can see there's an action plan. So you click on that tab and you get the aggregated feedback from all of the reviewers in one location, and you will see it here. So you remember the ID said could use a video, and it'll take a quarter of an hour to fix, and that's important. And so you can see here all of the feedback and an estimate of how much time to fix and whether it's important or essential. And so that'll help instructional designers and faculty prioritize, right? And look at the feedback in aggregate. So that's one of the benefits of using the electronic version of the rubric for a larger scale activity. The dashboard is the key piece here if you're doing a larger scale thing, because it allows somebody to be in charge of generating all kinds of rubrics for all the different courses that you want to review and to track them. You can assign them to the reviewers and to an instructional designer, and then you can take notes as the manager of the process. You can link directly to this particular course rubric so you can see what's going on in it, and you can document how complete the different reviewers are with the rubric. And from here you can also create customized rubrics. So your nursing department has a different rubric than your English department, and you can generate new versions of rubrics and generate rubrics to assign from this dashboard. So it's a very powerful tool for larger scale activities and initiatives. So I'm done, and it's 12:58. So we have 2 minutes for questions. Again, I want to make sure that you know that you have access to the folder, and you have access to the implementation plan, and you also have access to all of the links that I have shared with you today on this link page, which is located in that folder. And then, of course, the implementation plan itself you have access to. So, Erin, can you help me? Are there any questions that I need to think about?
Yeah, so if you have to drop, that's okay. We'll capture the questions in the recording. So if you wanted to pop one in the chat on your way out, that's totally fine. So Alex, I have 2 questions for you so far. One is from Cheryl asking if these practices have been adopted by faculty at SUNY who are teaching either in a face-to-face and or hybrid instructional environment, so not just for online.
So they're intended for courses that have, you know, technology that are technology mediated. So I would say blended, right? A blended course could be adapted. These practices and this process could be adapted for blended courses. But OSCQR is looking at you know, online courses and blended courses. So anything that happens online in terms of the design of a course is what OSCQR would cover. If you look at the standards, they're focused on, you know, providing information about getting started and welcoming in a learning management system. Now, OSCQR focuses on the instructional design of a course. right? And it's not saying anything about how the course is actually taught, but you can get a lot of information in terms of best practices based on how the course is designed, right? So it really does focus on online, any course that has any kind of online component. Anything else, Erin?
Yeah, thanks. And then Kevin was asking if you might have any good resources to help estimate that time to fix part of the rubric.
Yes. Well, first of all, we've taken a stab at that, right?
Yeah.
And we in our, if you look at an action plan, you will see that we have estimated that this will take this amount of time to fix. Now, this is an openly licensed tool, so if you disagree with that, you can go in and change that. And you might have to, depending on what your context is, right? But if you go to our main website, which is an online teaching website, and maybe Erin, you can pop that in the link. And if you go to, let me just see where I'm going to send you, go to the Teach Online Step by Step. You'll find a ton of resources here. This is just really, really rich with resources, but I'm going to pull out the one that you're asking about, which is, time. The question was about time to fix, right? Was that the question, Erin?
Correct.
So yeah, no, my mind went elsewhere. I was thinking about time on task.
I was thinking that exact same thing. That's what I did too.
So I'm going to share this with you anyway, just because I think it's super cool.
It's a great resource regardless. Yeah.
If an instructor is, really looking at their course and needing to think through whether or not they have sufficient content and interaction in the class, or whether or not they have too much. Sometimes the issue is more on the side of they have too much going on in the class. It's like a course and a half because the instructor put everything and the kitchen sink into the course. This time on task, these time on task tools will actually help the instructional designer and the instructor estimate. But determining how long something is going to take, what was the other thing? Where's that calculator thing? Oh, here it is, the enhanced calculator. Yeah, I wanted to show you that too. And this will actually generate stuff for you for that purpose. So we took a stab at calculating the amount of time to fix in our in the rubric, and we based this number on what the instructional designer thinks it should take. Now obviously, if your model relies on the instructor to fix things and they are not as skilled or adept or knowledgeable about varied technologies that they're going to need to implement in order to fix something, then that time is going to be affected by that, right? So I'm trying to think, do we have any? I don't have any. I can't think of any resources offhand to assist in that calculation. You just sort of have to think about your context, who's doing the fixing, and then adjust this column to that. And what we wanted to do with this is to give two criteria that the instructional designer or the instructor could use in order to help with prioritization. So one of the differences in OSCQR is that we don't evaluate courses. They don't get a score as a result of going through the OSCQR process. It's non-evaluative intentionally. What we want to do is help faculty and instructional designers understand what needs improvement, and then have some way to guide what is going to be tackled to be improved for the next time it's taught, with the understanding that the course is not done, that it needs to continuously be improved. And anything that gets highlighted as part of the review process can stay on the action plan, until either it resolves itself because the instructor, organically improves in some area or another, or because because it gets addressed directly, and it doesn't have to all be done once you have identified an issue. The notion is that you're going to continuously look at the action plan, continuously update and revise the action plan, and continuously select things to improve. And the two markers that we've used to help in that prioritization are time to fix and whether it's important or essential. If you disagree between, I mean, to me, everything is important and essential or essential. We just had to take a stand. We took a stand on this and decided that some things are more important than others, and so we labeled those essential. If you disagree, you can go into the code of the rubric, the electronic rubric, and change that. All right, did anything else come in?
No, that was the last question.
All right, I'm going to stop share and say thank you.